Everybody loves dads, stories, and the Marine Corps. What could be better than Marine Corps dads who tell stories? Here's another story with veteran storyteller John Sugar Jr., a Marine Corps dad.
Tonight, we're going to tell the story of Saint Jim and the Dragon. Once upon a time, there was a knight, and his name was Sir Jim. 2 words. And he did ride forth on his valiant steed, Archimedes, or something, finding great and powerful deeds to complete so that he might be a knight like all his brethren. He wanted to be a hero. So, he did ride forth on Archimedes and did seek the most dastardly of foes. So he rode, and he rode, and rode, and rode, until he heard a story. They said a town in the north is beset by a great beast who is stealing the little girls from their town. And Saint Jim, he wasn't a saint then, Sir Jim said, "I will go, Archimedes away." And Archimedes said, "Rear." And so they did ride on the road toward the north, and did reach said village. And they said, "All our little girls are gone. The dragon stole them." And Sir Jim said, "Not on my watch." And he did ride forth in Archimedes towards the mountain, where he saw the smoke of the dragon's cave. And he rode up to the dragon's cave and pulled out his sword, and he said, "Dragon, my name is Sir Jim of the Jimmy Jims. Come forth and do battle, so that I may rescue the tiny maidens," which is another way of saying little girls. And the dragon kind of poked his head out, and he's like, "Excuse me? Did you say something?" And Sir Jim said, "Yes. Kind of forgot some of it, though, so you're going to have to bear with me as I repeat myself. You have stolen tiny maidens. Therefore I am here to do battle and to save said tiny maidens." And the dragon said, There's no little tiny maidens here." And Jim said, "What? There are reports to the contrary. Wasn't really expecting to have this conversation, to be completely honest." And the dragon said, "I know, it's kind of awkward all around. Maybe you want to check another dragon's cave?" Yeah. And Jim said, "There are more dragons?" And the dragon said, "No, I think it's just me here. But I'm a vegetarian. I don't even like eating people. I don't have any little girls here." And so Jim said, "What? Let me look in there." And so the dragon kind of stepped back a little bit, and Jim stepped in and looked around. There's no little girls here. They sent me all the way up here to find little girls, and you don't even have any little girls here. Wasting a night's time." And the dragon said, "Oh, they said a dragon was stealing little girls? That's not very nice." And Jim sat down on a rock. "Well, then where are all the little girls?" And the dragon said, "Oh, I don't know, but there's some big guys they're riding around in a boat. Maybe you can ask them. They don't seem to like me very much. They just shoot arrows at me when I come by, but I'm used to it." And Sir Jim poked his head outside the cave, and he saw out on the sea, a ship. And on front of the ship was a dragon head. Because the Vikings always put dragon heads on their ships. And those Vikings had a bunch of little girls tied up in their boat. And Jim said, "You're not the dragon at all! It's them! Archimedes!" And Archimedes said, And so Jim did cast himself onto the back of Archimedes and said, "Archimedes, faithful steed, let us go and put these barbarians to the sword and save these little girls." And the dragon said, "Hey, do you want help?" And Jim said, "Really? You would do that?" And the dragon said, "Oh, sure. I don't think anybody ought to be stealing anybody's kids." And Jim said, "Well, I'm not really sure how I'm going to explain that to the other knights back home. They're not going to believe me at all. Very well, I suppose I could use the backup." And so Jim, Archimedes, and the dragon rode or flew down towards the beach where all the Vikings were. And the Vikings looked and they're like, "Ah!" And then they saw the dragon. And then they were like, "Ah!" And they started running. And the dragon landed on the beach and he went, "Ah!" And breathed fire all around and roasted the Vikings. He set all of their backsides on fire. And they were running around trying to put their backsides out. Some of them tried sitting in the water, others of them tried sitting in sand. One of them sat in a pot of lamp oil, and that didn't go so well. And they all went flying around. And they tried to get away, and the dragon burned the boat. And Sir Jim rode up on faithful Archimedes, and he saw the little girls who were hiding in the boat. They were screaming. And he said, "Fear not, young maidens, I will save you." And with one swipe of his sword, he cut the ropes that were holding the little girls. And instead of doing what they were told, they all ran off into the forest all by themselves. And Jim was like, "Oh, should have thought of that. We have to go get them." And so he and Archimedes rode through the forest and found all the little girls and took them back to their village. And ever since then, all the little girls would go up into the mountain and they would say thank you to the dragon, who wound up being very nice after all. The end.
That was another story with John Shurker Jr., a Marine Corps dad. Check the show notes for links to his Patreon and website at creativegrumbles.com.